Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar. We are so glad you're here on this beautiful Wednesday. We're going to get started in about 1 minute, but in the meantime, we have a chat box question for you all, and it's a really juicy one, so you're not going to want to miss this. It is, what organization are you with, and do you like ramps? So it's ramp season. I know there's a lot of ramp dinners being scheduled. So do you like ramps? And if so, how do you like to prepare them? So take a second. You're not going to want to miss those answers, and then we'll get started once everyone arrives in just a moment.
Someone else is there of me. Always seems to know the way. Then I look at you.
All right, so if you just joined us, we're having a really juicy conversation in the chat box. It is, have you ever had ramps before? And we're about 50-50 in the group. So if you've never tried one, there's a great shout out. The Wild Ramp in Huntington is having Stink Fest on April 22nd. So that would be a great time to enjoy a ramp. And I promise if you eat one, it won't make you stink too bad. So it'll be worth a visit. And we're really lucky to have so many wonderful nonprofits and groups joining us today. It's really interesting to see where everyone's from. And without further ado, we're going to go ahead and get started. So if you've never been to one of our webinars before, my name is Dana Bryant. I'm the Outreach Officer at Volunteer West Virginia. I've been here for about 10 years and I love it. I'm an AmeriCorps alum, and that's how I moved back to West Virginia. And we're also joined by Christina Cochran. She's our AmeriCorps Training Officer, and she's going to be a host today as well. Christina, do you want to say anything?
Just glad to hear everybody and all of their experiences with ramps.
Thanks, Christina. So this is part of our Volunteer West Virginia Wednesday series. We do this once a month on the second Wednesday, and it's just a fun training opportunity that we put together where we like to explain our different programs at Volunteer West Virginia. We network, provide trainings, and most of all, we have fun. So today is going to be a really informal and relaxed webinar, and we are so pleased with how it came together. So we're super excited to share all about volunteer recruitment with you all. So we have some really great upcoming topics. If you haven't registered yet, you're going to want to visit our website and sign up. They're all free. In May, we're going to have a really interesting webinar about approaching difficult conversations. And this will be conversations in a work-related setting. So maybe a difficult conversation with an employee, a volunteer, or a board member. It's going to be super cool. And we're going to have an outside presenter for that, so a special guest. So we're looking forward to that. And then in June, we're going to have another topic that has been heavily requested by you all, which is social media and marketing on a budget. So you're not going to want to miss that. We're going to have Charles Ryan presenting that. It's an advertising agency here in Charleston. And then on August 16th, we're going to be doing summer networking. So a chance for you all to meet each other and chat. And then we have a few other great webinars coming up. Grant writing is coming up in November, and that's one of our most popular webinars, and that'll be 2 hours. So you're not going to want to miss that. So be sure to sign up on our website. So today's topic is really exciting. We're doing volunteer recruitment ideas that really work. So you might have seen we sent out a survey across the state to volunteer managers, kind of getting some tips and idea of what works well in West Virginia. So we're going to be sharing those with you today. We're going to start out with some West Virginia volunteer data that just came out from AmeriCorps that we're really excited to share with you. And then Christina is going to explain 10 volunteer recruitment ideas that really work that we collected from you all in the state. And then to wind down our hour, we have 3 special guests with us today that are in the field, and they're going to be doing a volunteer recruitment panel. So they're going to be sharing some of their tips on how they recruit volunteers in their communities. And you're not going to want to miss that. We have some really special guests, so stay tuned for that as well. So we put this webinar together for National Volunteer Week. So we just want to kick it off early. That'll be next week. And we want to say happy National Volunteer Week. And thank you to all the West Virginians that volunteer and all the volunteer managers on the call today that help make that possible. So we're really grateful for you, and thank you for everything that you do to make West Virginia wonderful. So the first thing we're going to be talking about today is AmeriCorps just released this new report, and it's called Volunteering and Civic Life in America. And they do this report every 2 years, and they do a survey and they poll citizens from all across the country. And then it kind of tells us how many West Virginians volunteer and what a volunteer in West Virginia considers themselves to be. So it's really cool, and we're going to share just a little bit of data with that because we thought you all would find that pretty interesting. So here's the big picture of this report. In 2021, over 300,000 West Virginia residents volunteered in the state. So that's pretty remarkable. And then during the pandemic, you'll notice here that almost 800,000 residents helped their neighbor. So that's pretty amazing as well. I know it feels like a long time ago, but you might think back to the early days of the pandemic when we were shopping for our neighbors or sewing masks and everything that we did to really band us together as a state. So that's kind of being captured in this survey data. And then what I want to share with you all most importantly is that West Virginia ranks number 8 in the entire nation for informal volunteering. So that is awesome. And you might wonder what that means exactly. And I'm going to tell you a little bit more about that in our next slide. So just a little bit of data from this report. And then we'll get into the formal and informal volunteering. So about 60% of West Virginians informally help each other by exchanging favors with their neighbors. So this is our informal volunteering. So you might see on the left-hand corner of your screen, our tagline, "Be kind, volunteer West Virginia." This informal volunteering is kind of why we started this campaign, because we like to say at Volunteer West Virginia. In West Virginia, we're not very formal, we're laid back, and we love to help each other and be kind. So at least it feels like to me that in West Virginia, we might not consider ourselves volunteers, but we really are, because 60% of us help each other. And that's being done by kindness. So that's kind of something cool to think about, and a realization we had a few years ago that the people you're approaching in your community might not even consider themselves volunteers, but they really are, just because we're a more laid back place. And that's why, in my opinion, at least, we rank so high, number 8 in the nation for informal volunteering. So very cool to point out here. So you'll see that 60% of West Virginians informally volunteer, and then about 22% of us say that we're volunteers. So it's a big difference, but we're still out there helping. And then another interesting caveat in their survey is that 97% of us talk or spend time with our friends or family. So that's a huge number and a huge potential for us as volunteer managers across the state to use those friends and neighbors to get more volunteers. So that kind of jumped out to me when I was looking at this data yesterday. And then I'm just going to share one more slide with you all about this data, which is pretty interesting. So 74% of residents have had conversations or spent time with their neighbors. So that's something I'm thinking about. You know, if you're speaking to your neighbor, maybe you invite them to volunteer, because we're already doing that. You know I don't spend every day with my neighbors, but I think I would volunteer a few times a year with them. So I think as a community, there's a lot of potential in that and might be something we focus on at Volunteer West Virginia. Lastly, 23% of residents belong to an organization. So it seems like a lot of people are out there informally volunteering, not necessarily affiliated with a group. And then about 46% of us donate $25 or more to charity. So a great caveat to what we always say, that in West Virginia, we might not have a lot, but we have a lot to give. So just a really cool survey that I wanted to point out to you all before we jumped into today's content. And this was all organized by AmeriCorps. That's our federal agency that we work with. And if you're curious to learn more about this data or use this data in a grant application, you can find it at AmeriCorps.gov, and you can find West Virginia's data or all the other data from across the country. So I think there's some really cool stuff we could be doing with this. All right, so before we jump into our top 10 tips, we're curious, everyone on the call today, on a scale of 1 to 10, how comfortable are you with volunteer recruitment? So let's see, if you do number 1, you're going to say, I'm a newbie, so you're just starting, or 10, I'm an expert. And I know there's a few experts on the line today, so don't be shy. I'm looking at our panelists, and I would consider both of you a 10. So go ahead and put this in the chat box. It'll just be interesting for us to gauge where everyone's at today.
See lots of answers coming in. Looks like a lot of people are rating themselves between 5, 6, and 7. I'm really happy to see that. I was worried that a lot of you guys were going to be underselling your volunteer recruitment skills, because we know you guys are doing a great job out there. Given all those statistics that Dana shared, people are finding volunteer opportunities and getting involved. So if you haven't, be sure to rate yourself on a scale of 1 to 10 with how comfortable you are with volunteer recruitment. And hopefully with these top 10 tips that I'm about to share, you might become a little bit more comfortable in your volunteer recruitment skills and your repertoire of things to pull from. So these are some tips that we have learned along the way, both from our staff at Volunteer West Virginia and ideas collected from our volunteer managers across the state. Thank you to all of you guys that submitted tips through the survey we sent out last month. It's really helpful to pull from people that are out in the field getting things done and recruiting volunteers. So here we go. Our first tip is to have a plan. This tip was submitted by Carrie Kidd with Harmony for Hope of West Virginia. She's one of our panelists that we're going to hear a little bit more from later on. But her tip to have a plan is simple, we think, right? But it can really go a long way. She says, even if it's a hot dog sale that needs to be pulled off by next week, or if you can expect a mural installed before the end of a long journey, if you can't develop a solid plan, even if it's a short time span, then don't press forward. We love that tip because it takes a plan to really make something come together. Maybe you've been on the other side of things when you were a volunteer that showed up to participate, or you were waiting for someone to send you information about a volunteer opportunity. If they weren't organized or there wasn't any type of plan, think about how that made you feel. It probably did not put a good taste in your mouth about that organization, and maybe it even made you not want to volunteer with them again. So think about that when you're putting together volunteer opportunities in your role as an organizer. A plan doesn't have to be anything really complicated. It can be really quick and simple. So for example, you can think about the different jobs that might need to be done by volunteers. How many volunteers will be needed for each of those roles, and the date and the time needed. You could make a really simple table just like this one to help you gather your thoughts about how many volunteers you're going to need, when you're going to need them, and what they're going to do. And that can help you set goals and a timeline for planning for your event or whatever you might need volunteers for. Our second tip is to make it easy for volunteers to sign up. One thing that's really simple and free is to use an online form like Google Forms or Sign Up Genius. Those are great. It automates things so you don't have to go back and forth and make sure you're communicating with everyone to cross off which shifts are full. When people input their information to Sign Up Genius, then it will show as a filled volunteer slot. So we really encourage you guys to check those out if you haven't used those before. We want to share one example of a volunteer sign up form from the Carnival of the Animals, which is at the Huntington Children's Museum. So as you can see, they have some information thanking people for being interested in this volunteer opportunity on this Saturday, April 15th at the Wild Ramp. It gives some information about what volunteers will be doing, guiding children explorations through different animals, and the time frames for volunteers. And one thing that we love about this volunteer sign up form is that it also creates a timeline for when they will be contacted with additional information. So it's really simple, just name, contact information, what shift you want to sign up for, what activities you're interested in, any special talents and comments. So we hope that you might be able to implement using a sign up form for your volunteer opportunities that are upcoming. Our third tip is don't be afraid to ask. It can be really nerve-wracking because you don't want to be a bother to people, but sometimes people just want to be asked. They want to know that you value their time, and maybe they're not opening your email blast that you're sending out. Maybe they're not commenting on your Facebook posts, but if you pick up the phone and call them, they might say yes. So one tip from Terry Baker with the West Virginia School of Osteopathic Medicine is if you can't get the president or the CEO or whomever of a company, you can ask them if they have someone to recommend to represent in their place. Usually whoever that they recommend will choose, whoever they choose will want to volunteer in their place. So sometimes it just takes a little bit to make someone feel special and valued, and that you could really need their time to be able to give back to your cause. Another tip is to focus on a new way of reaching volunteers. Here are some examples. So one is personal networking. This can look like refer a friend campaign, gathering all your volunteers and asking them to nominate one friend or family member that they think would be interested in volunteering, so you can get together a new pool of people to ask. And of course, like we just mentioned, direct asks to people who might be interested in volunteering. Another way to reach new volunteers is through special events. This could be a specific volunteer recruitment event, or it could be setting up a table at another community or outreach event, such as a school or a farmer's market, or all types of things that are always happening in the community. Another way to reach new volunteers is through public presentations. This could be an info session either at your organization where you open it up to the public and invite people to come and learn about what you all are doing and potentially give a tour of your facility or your office. You could also give a PSA during a community talk. A lot of times people attend family resource network meetings or community meetings, PTA meetings. It's a great time to speak up and just say, hey, we have this opportunity. If you'd like to get involved, see me afterwards for more information. And another idea is to post online and use ads. You can post on social media and you can add a volunteer tab to your website to make it really easy and clear for people to know how to get involved if it's something they're interested in. Of course, we want to make sure everyone's aware that you can also post your volunteer opportunities on our website, volunteer.wv.gov. We have a nice matchmaking service where you can enter all about your organization and what you need volunteers for, and then people can search based on their location to find opportunities near them. So make sure that you're utilizing this free service through our website. It's super simple. Once you go to volunteer.wv.gov, you'll find this button here that says need volunteers, and you'll click that and it'll prompt you to enter your organizational information. When we sent out the survey to all of our network of volunteer managers and asked how most of you all are recruiting volunteers, this is what you all told us. A lot of people are posting flyers around town and recruiting by word of mouth. We have a lot of people recruiting on social media, which makes sense. It's how a lot of us communicate nowadays and even get news and all sorts of things. A some people are using online volunteer databases. So that would be like our website. Some people are posting in the newspaper, and others are using volunteer recruitment events. So it's kind of cool to see the distribution of how other people are using different resources to recruit volunteers in West Virginia. Other responses to our survey was to ask in person. I'm not from West Virginia. I moved here 5 years ago, but I can definitely tell you that there's nothing like just the friendly West Virginia faces. And most of the time when I've gotten involved in volunteer roles, it's because somebody asked me when they saw me. And I can definitely vouch for that. Another tip was to offer transportation to your volunteer opportunity. A lot of people are limited in what they can participate in due to transportation issues. So if your agency or organization has access to a van or a bus, or even another volunteer or staff member that has a large vehicle, that could really help you get people to your volunteer opportunity. And another idea is to get people involved by bringing a friend or a neighbor. So we're going to challenge you guys to pick one of these new ways to reach volunteers and try it out this spring. If you have an event coming up, or if you have ongoing opportunities for volunteers to get involved, think about something you haven't tried. Maybe it's been a little bit intimidating. Maybe you've just never thought about it before, and make it a point to use that new way to reach volunteers this spring. Our fifth tip, we're blowing through our 10 top tips, is to write a clear and simple volunteer description. Here's a simple little formula for you to gather your thoughts about what that volunteer position description might look like. So think about what the community need is. How is it providing a solution to that need? How do your volunteers make a difference? How does a volunteer sign up? All of those things can help really make it enticing for a volunteer to want to pursue your opportunity. So once you put together your position description, make sure you post it on our website, and you can also use it as a talking point when you're talking to people out in the community or sending emails or any other ways that you're recruiting volunteers. It's nice to have it laid out in a bulleted talking points. Here's a great example of a volunteer position description at Man a Meal. Volunteers like you help us transform hundreds of pounds of donated food into healthy meals for our most vulnerable neighbors. That's really powerful, and it makes people want to get involved when they can see how their time and effort is going to be part of a bigger solution. Another tip is to be responsive. Ooh, I know this is a pain point for me as a volunteer manager. Sometimes we're so busy out there doing the work, it's really difficult to make sure we're following up on every email we get, or every phone call, or every Facebook message. So if you can, make sure you have multiple points of contact so it's not too much on you, and have a plan in place. Maybe it's one day a week or 30 minutes a day where you're reviewing those inquiries and at least sending them a quick follow-up saying, hey, I got your message. So glad you're interested in volunteering. I'll give you a call later this week so we can discuss the details. You want to keep them engaged so they don't fly away and find a different volunteer opportunity. Sorry, guys. You could also consider scheduling a volunteer open house where volunteers can meet you, and you can kill two birds with one stone, so to speak, and get multiple people involved at once. But you definitely want to make sure that you are responsive to people that inquire about your opportunities. Our seventh top tip is to promote your volunteer opportunities alongside special dates. This tip came from Rebecca Brown with the Children's Home Society of West Virginia. So one idea would be to promote dates such as, if you're recruiting mentors, say January is National Mentoring Month, or in June, it's National Children's Awareness Month. Get involved in June. For them, it's increased their volunteer mentor applications by 20% by aligning their social media posts or their outreach materials with those special months or days. So that's a great tip. Next is to find your volunteer pipeline. You can identify local groups that share interest with your organization and that might align with your volunteer opportunities. You could offer to do a presentation at a meeting for a potential pipeline organization. So that could be a local women's club, a Lions club, a business, a local church, sororities and fraternities at local colleges, or maybe that's even a class or what's the word I'm thinking of? A club at a local college or university. They're always looking for ways to get involved in the community. So don't be afraid to reach out and say, hey, can I come for 5 minutes at the end of your meeting and give a little bit of information about my opportunity? So some examples of connections and pipelines you could potentially make. If you're looking for volunteers to serve as a museum attendant, you might look for art history students who would be looking for experience in that realm. If you are looking for a watershed advocate, you might look for a gardening group. If you're looking for hospice volunteers, you might look for family members of past patients who really understand the value of the services that hospice provides. And if you're looking for healthcare navigators, you could look for retired insurance agents. So think about people who might have experience in the field and would be willing to share their experiences through a volunteer role. Number 9 is to create an online community for volunteers to connect with each other. One super simple way is a Facebook group. I am a volunteer manager of my local Humane Society, and this is our Facebook group. We have about 50 people in it, and it's where we can post about what's going on, what opportunities are coming up. We also have a file section where we keep all of our volunteer forms and our volunteer handbook for quick and easy access. We can share photos with each other. So it's half business with scheduling and signups, and it's also half fun for volunteers to connect together and really create a social community for them to feel like they're a part of a group, because that's why a lot of people volunteer, is to meet people and feel connected to other people in their community. We also know some volunteer groups use Slack, which is an app where you can communicate with people easily. Slack has a free version. We encourage you guys to check that out. You could also make a group me or another online community where people can stay connected to what you guys are doing. And our last tip is to make volunteering fun and easy to do. So as you're thinking about this one, we want you guys to answer in the chat box, what was one of your favorite volunteer experiences? How was it fun and easy to participate? I'll share one of my favorite volunteer experiences that was fun. It was actually the first time that I ever met one of our panelists, Carrie Kidd, when we were, I think we were both AmeriCorps members at the time, and we worked on a mural in Mount Hope together, and it was super easy to sign up for that. I knew to just show up with dirty clothes on that I didn't care to get paint on, and we were going to be priming this giant wall, and it was one of the most fun and easy volunteer experiences that I had. I got to meet new people. I had just moved to the area a few weeks prior to that event, and they provided all the supplies. I knew exactly what I was in for, and now I can drive through Mount Hope and see the mural that I was a part of painting, which was a really cool experience. So I'm going to be really interested to see if anybody has anything to share in the chat box about one of their favorite volunteer experiences. Now we're going to switch gears a little bit into our volunteer recruitment panel. Pass it back to you for that, Dana.
Thanks, Christina. So I hope you all enjoyed those tips. I know we had a lot of 7s and 8s in the room that were relatively familiar with volunteer recruitment, but we hope the tips gave you something new to think about, and everyone picked up at least one gem. There were some really great ideas in there, and I think our biggest takeaway, like Christina said, is to make it fun and easy, stay organized, and then kind of think about different ways to get the word out in your communities. So we hope you really enjoyed that. And then there's some great volunteer opportunity experiences coming in through the chat box that you all can look at throughout the webinar as well. So to close out our time together today, we are really lucky to have some volunteer managers that are experts in the field that we're going to ask questions to. So our first guest is going to be Jennifer Wagner. I love working with Jennifer whenever we get a call from someone in Charleston who's interested in volunteering. I always recommend that they talk to Jennifer at Faith in Action of the Greater Kanawha Valley. I absolutely love her program, and she does a great job of keeping it organized. So I'm going to ask Jennifer a few questions, and throughout our panel, if anyone has a question, put it in the chat box, and if we have time, we'll ask it for you. So welcome, Jennifer.
Thank you. Thanks for having me and for the kind words.
Yeah, of course. I love working with you. You do such a great job. For anyone on today's webinar who hasn't heard of Faith in Action of the Greater Kanawha Valley, can you tell them just a little bit about your program and what your volunteers do?
Sure. So our program is 100% volunteer driven. We would not have a program without our volunteers. And what our volunteers do is provide free services to our older neighbors in the community. We serve two county area, Kanawha and Putnam counties, and we serve people 60 and older with transportation to medical appointments, grocery shopping assistance, friendly phone calls, honeydew projects like installing grab bars and handrails to keep people safe in their homes. We also have a library by mail program that we offer for shut-ins and people who can't get out to get new books to read. It's a free service as well. Just so things like that. And then throughout the year, we have a whole host of special projects like Senior Christmas, which has grown into a huge initiative of its on all its own. We just finished delivering Easter dinners on Easter Sunday to some of our seniors. We do Thanksgiving dinners as well. So we have just a whole variety of ways people can engage.
Wow, Jennifer. And when you list all those projects that you do and say that you're 100% volunteer run, it blows my mind. How many volunteers do you have in your program?
We have approximately 235 volunteers, give or take. Now, the thing to understand, though, is that all those volunteers don't do everything that we offer, right? So some of them just participate in Senior Christmas. Some of them just participate in the delivery events that we have. Some of them drive, some of them make phone calls. It's just they pick and choose what they want to do. So while it's a big number, there are programs where we need more volunteers, like driving people to medical appointments is a huge need. And so that's where we're in the constant challenge of our program, is to continually engage new volunteers in that effort.
And with over 200 volunteers, how do you keep everyone organized and stay in touch with them?
Well, probably the key thing that I have two things that we over communicate. We communicate like crazy. We have a newsletter for the volunteers only. We have a very active Facebook page where we communicate with our volunteers. We send out a Monday morning email every week reminding them of upcoming opportunities and asking them if they have a moment to sign up. So that's the main way that we keep everybody connected. But also we have online scheduling capabilities. So people can go online and schedule themselves. So it's a self-scheduling situation. So they don't feel micromanaged. They are presented with opportunities and they can sign up or not sign up. It's up to them. There's no commitment to spend, to commit to 10 volunteer acts a month or else you're off the list or whatever. They can do whatever they need to, they can do that fits their schedule. So I think our flexibility helps a lot, but that's basically how we keep it all together.
Wow, that's awesome. And if anyone's interested in that scheduling software, do you know the name of it?
Well, right now we're using a combination of two. We're using Volunteer Hub and Ride Scheduler.
Mm-hmm.
We are we're developing our own just one-stop shop service because we have so many different things to sign up for and different ways to sign up, and it's just a constant update. Excuse me. So those are the two we're using right now, Volunteer Hub and Ride Scheduler.
So Jennifer brought up a great point. So with over 200 volunteers, over communicating is key. And I love the examples that you gave of doing a newsletter for volunteers. So if anyone on the webinar needs tips for keeping your volunteers engaged, the newsletter, I love that idea. Jennifer said they had a social media page, and I really love that you do the Monday emails to the volunteers. I think that's a really smart idea.
Another thing too that I would just add in the 10 tips that that you gave were awesome. They were great tips, and I wrote down a couple that I'm going to try myself. But one of the things about volunteer recruitment, on the flip side, of the other side of that coin, is retention, right? For us, it's so important not just to keep to recruit new volunteers, but to keep the ones we have, and let them know that they're valued. We do the word thank you and grateful and appreciation, and all of those words are a regular part of my vocabulary. And I probably thank people too much, but you can just never be grateful enough for their willingness to help other people. And it's so that's the retention piece is critical to the recruitment piece. If you recruit a volunteer, that's great, but if you can't retain them because you don't have opportunities that appeal to them, or you don't thank them enough, or they don't feel appreciated, then then you're going to lose volunteers. So I just wanted to make that point, that that's a really important aspect of volunteer recruitment.
Absolutely, Jennifer. I'm glad you mentioned that, because you're right. I mean, you recruit someone. When I talk to people, I say recruiting volunteers is like making a new friend. You know, they aren't like aliens. Like sometimes it feels like they're aliens, but it's really just making a new friend. And you're going to want to invite them into your circle. And once you get them there, thank them. And that's something Jennifer's really good at. I know you all host picnics for your volunteers. Could you give a few examples of some of the ways you thank them?
Sure. So our volunteers don't often have the opportunity to get together, because it's one-on-one services that they're providing with the people that we serve. So a couple of times a year, twice a year, during Volunteer Appreciation Week, we're having an open house on Wednesday of the Volunteer Appreciation Week for our volunteers this coming week. And in the fall, we have a picnic where everybody can get together, and it's just a potluck, and we have, some prizes and things like that. And it's just a way for them to be able to come together. One of the things that's on our agenda for the coming year is to have a perks package for our volunteers. So if you're a volunteer, we're going to host a CPR training class, for example, that you can involve in for free, that it will just be a benefit to you as a volunteer. So we're going to try to do like 4 of those things throughout the year, which is yet another opportunity for the volunteers to get together and share stories and, and see what everybody else is doing. So
those are great tips. So once you have volunteers, treat them well, because then they'll stick around and they'll want to continue to be a part of your family. So Jennifer gave some really great examples. Sorry.
It's there's only 2 of us here in the office. We're a staff of 2, and we have approximately 500 people, give or take, depending on the time of year, of people that we serve. So our volunteers are vital and critical to our mission, and without them, we wouldn't exist. So we work really hard to make sure that they know that they know how much we value them and the community values them.
Yeah, and that really shows. If you all get a chance to visit Jennifer's website or volunteer in her program, you can tell that they really do take good care of their volunteers. And, I thought about it on the drive to work. I mean, that builds your reputation. Jennifer, can you speak to that? Once you build a reputation as being a great volunteer organization, does that help you bring in more volunteers in Charleston and Putnam County?
It absolutely does. And just touch on 2 quick things there. One of the tips that Christina offered was about making the ask personal. Well, our volunteers, we encourage them constantly to ask their friends, engage their friends, invite somebody to come with them to an event or whatever, because that is the best way to get new volunteers, from somebody who's enjoyed the experience and encouraging somebody that they know well to do it also. So that's pretty important. And the other thought I was going to say just kind of flew out of my head. I can't think of what it was. Sorry.
It might come back. If it does, just let me know. We'll go back to it. So with so many volunteers, you said over 200, and then with a staff of 2 people, how do you stay so responsive to all the inquiries you get? Can you speak a little bit about that and why it's important?
One of the things that helps us manage that is that we do have our volunteers have to go through 3 steps to become a volunteer. So there's a training required, there's a background screen required, and an application required. We do the same thing on the care receiver side. So they have an application also, and then an intake visit is required where I go and meet with them. So it's not like we don't get 15 calls a day that somebody needs something tomorrow. They go through a process to become part of our our family here. And once they are part of our family, then there's things in place to keep everything running smoothly. Like we have a 2-week notice requirement on transportation needs, so that we can manage that 2-week period that gets really, chaotic and busy. And, we have a lot of appointments. That helps us tremendously. So it's managing things on the back end through processes, I think, is what really helps us keep things flowing smoothly. The reputation bit, that is so important to us. I tell my volunteers in training that, I will never be upset with them if they call me the morning of or an hour before and tell me that something has happened and they can't do what they had signed up to do, because that gives us an opportunity to take care of it and to make it right. But what I will never forgive is somebody who just doesn't show up when they said they would. And that is what can kill your reputation as an organization and as a volunteer provider, service provider. So that's really important to us, and we stress that a lot. So we like to give enough time for people where it's not like things are coming to them chaotically and there's so many opportunities that they can't, field them all, and they get tired of reading about them. We try to do it methodically and in a process way and in a thoughtful way, so that they can take their time to decide what they want to do and when they want to do it.
I love that. And kind of like just a little bit more about that for our last question is, one of the things I really admire about your program is how you make it so easy for volunteers to get involved. You were just kind of talking about that. Can you share a few of your tips for making it easy for volunteers to get involved?
The number one way is the online scheduling, the self-scheduling tool that they use. I mean, because they can go on and peruse that and say, oh, I'm free Thursday afternoon and Donna needs a ride to the dentist. I'll be glad to take her and sign up for it. And that's probably the number one thing. But I think the feedback that we get from our volunteers, and one of the things, aside from the obvious connections that they're making and the impact that they're having, in real time, and they can feel that and they know that. I think the flexibility of being able to sign up for opportunities when they want to, as they are able and as their schedule permits. So we literally, and when I say this, and I know people say it as a big safe and big net thing, but we literally have an opportunity for anyone. So if you're working full time, you can do groceries once a month for somebody on the weekends or in the evenings. If you are a stay-at-home mom, you can bring your kids along. We encourage that. That's an awesome opportunity to expose them to the value of volunteering and giving back. Retirees, if you go to Florida for 3 months in the winter, go for it. Just when you come back, don't forget about it. So there's I think the flexibility and the fact that we do what we say we're going to do when we say we're going to do it. I think that matters a lot, and that really has a great impact on our volunteers.
I love that. So if anyone's thinking of getting an online scheduling system for your volunteers, go for it. Jennifer says it's a really big help. And then I also admire how flexible you are, and that you meet your volunteers where they're at, and that you're so adaptable to not only your volunteers, but to your clients. Because when you did the number of everyone you serve, that would be the volunteers and the clients. So that's about 500 people, right?
Yes.
Which is amazing. I could not imagine managing 500 people, just a staff of 2 people.
It's not easy, but it's fun.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
We
I
have
can
the
tell
fun
you
part.
love it. And that's why it keeps you so driven. So Jennifer, do you have any other thoughts you want to share?
I just think that, just always remembering that the way you're treating your current volunteers is what's going to get out in the community. And, that's the most important thing, I think, is that if they're happy, they're going to spread the word in a positive way about your organization, and that's only going to help you in the long run. So I think that's just very important to keep in mind. I would also say that it's very important to capture your stories on both sides of the equation, volunteers and care receivers. And we share our stories on social media, in the newsletters. We share our stories everywhere we possibly can. When I'm presenting to somebody, I share stories that of the impact our organization had on volunteers and on the care receivers both. And that's, so collecting your stories and sharing them is a really important way of keeping your volunteer opportunities at the forefront. It's a way to draw people in to what you do.
That's a great tip. And that could have been one of our top 10. You're right. You want to share your stories because when you're not recruiting your volunteers and keeping them around, you need to save a little sliver of your time to share all the remarkable things you're doing. And you're really good at that.
And that also is an extension of gratitude. So, when you're sharing these stories that have such power, the volunteer who was involved is like, that it's just an extension of the appreciation that you have for the people that are helping you do your work.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you, Jennifer. I love talking to you. You're such an expert. I really appreciate it. Jennifer shared some great tips, and you have a nice message in the chat box from someone you went to school with who gave you
I think I saw that
compliment.
pop up.
So check it out. And thank you so much, and keep up the great work. And thank you for the community that you're building in the Kanawha Valley.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, so we have another special guest panelist that we're going to talk to, Carrie Kidd. I absolutely love Carrie. She's an AmeriCorps alum, an absolute spitfire who's doing so much and even started her own nonprofit, Harmony for Hope of West Virginia, after completing her AmeriCorps service. So we're really excited to have Carrie today. Welcome, Carrie. It's so good to see you.
I'm excited to be here. Was at a Vista meeting right before we got here, so I'm glad to be able to come and meet with you all.
Well, thanks, Carrie. And if anyone on the call hasn't heard of Harmony for Hope for West Virginia, can you tell us a little bit about your program?
Absolutely. Harmony for Hope of West Virginia was founded by the Mount Hope Alumni Band originally. And we grew to approximately 16 members, and then we were incorporated in around 2017, a little bit prior before my AmeriCorps service, but we incorporated around 2017. And if it wasn't for my AmeriCorps service, then I don't think I would have been able to build the organization like I was able to, and build the connections that I was, just because of the volunteer recruitment opportunities that are there and being able to be out in the community and meet people. We now have Harmony for Hope now has several different programs underneath us. The Mount Hope Alumni Band is now the Mount Hope Regional Band. We have several members from around 6 counties who come to Mount Hope to participate in the community band. And we tour Southern West Virginia all year long, playing concerts and parades. Then we also have what we call as our Harmonies Kids program, and that's where our Vista is participating this year. And underneath our Harmonies Kids program, we have a club that is building here in Mount Hope. We have one that's very active in Oakville, West Virginia, and we have one that's beginning to form in Huntington, West Virginia. Then outside of our Harmonies Kids program, we have the Fayette County Community Arts Center that will be the future home of the Mount Hope Regional Band. It is a preservation project that all of our members are working on in some capacity, whether it's grant writing or getting someone involved with volunteer coordination to help with renovation projects. We will be adding the Yearly Furniture program on next year. The Yearly Furniture program will be run by Alex Berg, who's been our AmeriCorps member now for this is his second year, and we're excited to be offering him a 3rd term. And his focus is, he was originally a woodworker. He works with antique furniture and he refinishes it. And so we will be working with local drug treatment facilities, and he will be bringing them in to begin teaching them a new skill. Because of our work that we've been doing at the Harmonies Kids program, we now have a sub-organization called the Oakville Area Outreach Team. They are in the Oakville area, and their primary focus is on working with community members and substance abuse facilities to put the two together. A lot of community members in their area have homes that need to be worked on, and they already have the materials that they can provide. So they just need the volunteer labor to come in, and they are able to connect the two together. We started in 2017. This is 2023, and we're now at an estimated volunteer capacity of $1.4 million. That was just a good estimate from last year's numbers. We have approximately 150 volunteers, but as a GIS technician in my former life, I've now developed an app that we are using to track our volunteer hours. And after we finally get everybody on board, we've made it really easy to use, but we're just getting it rolled out. So we hope to be able to have some concrete numbers next year that'll help to support the work that we're doing. So, but yeah, we're doing a lot.
Yeah, it's amazing to see how much you've grown in the community, Carrie, and all the new projects you've been starting with your volunteers. It's amazing. You have over 100. I know you're kind of in a rural area, so a lot of people are probably curious. Do you have any tips for recruiting volunteers in a rural area, and what has worked for you?
We've actually, what we had to do is go outside of our area to recruit volunteers. And so, and social media has been a big way that we do that. And just kind of getting that, when we have a need, getting that need out there to the community so people will know about it, and just making sure that they understand where to come and what time, and just being very communicative with our needs. And I've looked at it, took the perspective that my father was a businessman here in the area, and being from a rural, the rural perspective was that we don't get business from inside Mount Hope, we get it from outside Mount Hope. So I started taking that as that's how we need to work together. And that's also how we started to build programs in other communities. And now because of that, then we're also seeing an exchange of volunteers when we can. So whenever Oakville has a cleanup, as they notify us about it, that's something I would like to talk to Jennifer about. I like how they're doing things down there. I've learned some stuff today. I'm glad I sit in on this meeting because that's really just how to get them coordinated at the right times and make sure everybody knows about everybody's project. So because we really do have so much going on, it's just hard to keep everyone all together about all the different volunteer opportunities that are out there and what they can go and do. So.
Yeah, and I love that you're connecting different towns and areas and bringing the volunteers together. I think that's awesome, and using a broader network to bring people in. If you were giving advice to a new volunteer manager to recruit volunteers, what advice would you give them?
Well, if you don't have anyone, if you're just brand new and you don't have anyone to really go to, and you're just kind of like you and you're out there in the community, I would really definitely recommend social media. Reach out using social media. That was how I got started. And holding group in-person meetings. A lot of times I would get just one person to show up, and that one person was enough just to be able to get a conversation going and then get them, because then it's amazing how that one person does go and share your story. And it's taken 10 years to get here, but I'm pretty happy to say that that one conversation has led into thousands of conversations. And those are the ones that I've had. So I can only imagine how many more conversations have been had outside of me,
That's a great point that it's taken you 10 years.
Yeah.
It does take time to grow. That's a good perspective to have on it. Okay, so what is, we're going to do one more or two more questions. So what would be one of your secrets for success for volunteer recruitment, if you have one?
I was complimented once, and I never realized it was successful, and I've used it ever since, is to admit that you don't know everything. It meant that you make mistakes. It meant that you're a person, and do it in a group setting, because that makes people feel so comfortable. Because if you come off as you have all the answers, then sometimes, that can be intimidating to people. And so if you can say, hey, look, I'm not sure if this is how it's going to work, but we can do this together and figure it out. Just even something that simple, that makes people feel at ease, and it makes them want to say, hey, this is somebody I want to work with, and I think my friends want to work with. And so that's been really effective.
Yeah, and I admire that about you. And I think that's why people gravitate to you, because you're a very genuine person and they can tell that you're someone in the community who wants to help. And I think that makes you like a magnet, and people are attracted to you when you're honest and genuine and you're just trying to solve a problem. I think that's a great superpower that volunteer managers have, that bring people in. So I love that about you. Carrie, do you have any other final thoughts? I know we could talk forever about this, but any other final thoughts about volunteer recruitment or tips you want to share with the group?
I know I hope I'm showing the excitement that I have for volunteerism, and honestly, this is genuine. And just, if you can, get excited about your project and what you're doing, and just, try to have that excitement and it doesn't have to be, as visual as I am, but just people will be able to tell if you're excited, then they'll get excited too. So, and even on a hard day, and I have had many, especially over 2022, it was a rough year, but we've came out of it, and just we were able to do that by just maintaining a positive attitude that, tomorrow is better. So just try to remain positive. Yeah.
Yeah. Carrie, you're definitely positive and you have a lot of strength. And you're making a lot of stuff happen. So we're really grateful, and thanks for sharing your tips today. And Carrie, such a wonderful success story for AmeriCorps on how you can use a year of service to find what you're passionate about in the community, and even make your own nonprofit. So if you're an AmeriCorps member on today's webinar, or if you're someone in Carrie's position, I'm sure she would love to chat with you and give you some advice. She's a great resource, and we're really happy to have you. Thank you so much, Carrie.
Oh, thank you, Dana. I'm going to put my email in the address, and I just really appreciate you all letting me come and talk.
No, thanks, Carrie. All right, and we have one more special guest, but I just want to make sure she couldn't make it today. But Brandy, if you're in the meeting, send me a message so we don't overlook you. But I think something must have come up. But Brandy has a really interesting program. It's called Hope and Healing in the Hollows. I love the name. So if you're in Boone County, be on the lookout for Brandy. They have some really exciting projects coming up, and maybe we'll have her on a guest next time if she's able to make it. So if anyone has any final questions, we have about 2 minutes. You can put them in the chat box. I'll read them out loud for you, or maybe you can send our panelists a private message. But we'd love to hear your thoughts in the chat box of what you thought of today's session. This is the first kind of volunteer recruitment webinar that we've put together using feedback from programs from across the state. So we're really happy with how it came together, and we hope you all enjoyed it too, that we could make it really West Virginia specific, and that you enjoyed it as much as we did. So to close out, Christina's going to paste a SurveyMonkey feedback survey in the chat box. Please take a second to let us know what you thought and any suggestions for next year's webinar series. And we are just so happy to spend this hour with you all. We really appreciate it. And thank you to everyone for all your hard work making West Virginia wonderful. We really appreciate you, and we'll see you next month. Christina, any thoughts?
I want to say thanks everyone for being here. If you fill out our feedback survey, like Dana said, we ask for suggestions for future topics for these webinars. So if there's something that you'd like to learn more about or hear experiences from others, we do use those surveys to plan our future trainings. So please share your thoughts. And we hope to see everybody in May.
Awesome. I'm going to play a song to say goodbye. And I want to say thank you again to Jennifer Wagner from Faith in Action of the Greater Kanawha Valley, and Carrie Kidd from Harmony from Hope for being our special guest today. And you all have lots of sweet messages in the chat box. So don't miss it, and enjoy this beautiful day.